Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's live Zoo to You. My name is Katie, and I'm an educator here at the Stone Zoo. And today we are going to be talking all about our different species of frogs we have here at Stone Zoo. And today's Zoo to You is brought to you on behalf of MIFA and the U Fund College Investing Plan. So we're going to go ahead and meet some of our frogs here up close. And we're hoping that everybody will be able to get a really good look at them. And as you are checking out this tank of frogs, I am going to be feeding them some of their favorite foods, and hopefully we'll get to see some of those really cool hunting behaviors right here in live for us. So as you're looking, you might notice that these frogs look a little different from each other. We actually have 3 different species of frogs living in this tank together, and that is called a mixed species exhibit, when you have more than one species sharing the same space. So here we have green and black poison dart frogs that we're kind of zooming in, and right behind that green and black poison dart frog is a species called a dying poison dart frog. And dying does not mean that they are sick or ill and they're going to die. It is dye referring to tie-dye, referring to color. And then now we're also seeing a species that looks a little different, and this is a Panamanian golden frog. So we just put in some of their favorite treats, and those are fruit flies and crickets. Since these frogs are pretty small, their food items are going to be really small as well. So the crickets we feed them have a couple different names, either pinhead or 1-week crickets. That just means they're baby crickets. They are teeny tiny. And we also feed fruit flies, and we dust all of those insects in vitamins, which helps keep our frogs nice and healthy here at the zoo. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different species, but if you have any questions about them, please feel free to type those in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So let's talk about our Panamanian golden frog first. And this frog you're going to see kind of hanging out right by this bromeliad plant. They've got really beautiful yellow coloring, and they have that really bright color on their body as a warning to other animals that they are potentially very dangerous. These frogs in their natural habitat out in Panama are extremely toxic. They have lots of toxins in their body. But just like our other species of poison dart frogs here at the zoo, they are not poisonous in zoos. And that is because of what they eat. These frogs out in their natural habitat are going to be eating insects, and those insects feed on poisonous plants. So the more insects that the frogs eat, the more poison accumulates in their bodies, making them poisonous. But here at the zoo, we do not have poisonous insects to feed our frogs. We have regular crickets and fruit flies. So even though they look exactly the same as their counterparts out in Panama, they do not have any poison in their body here at the zoo. These frogs also are very special. They have a really important story. So we're going to focus a little bit on frog and amphibian conservation in today's chat. These frogs are estimated to be either critically endangered or possibly even extinct in the wild. They have a really restricted habitat in Panama where they're found in streams, along the slopes of central rainforests and cloud forests, at elevations of just over 1,000 feet to 4,000 feet above sea level. And they're found in these kind of wet forests and then in streams in dry forests. So they have a very specific habitat. They have a really small range, being only found in Panama. and they are very susceptible to pollution. Frog skin is really porous. It's like a sponge. So if there are any contaminants in the water, since they're hanging out in streams, they can soak those up through their skin, and that is not good for frogs. Habitat destruction is another really big threat. And there is something affecting frogs all over the world, especially these Panamanian golden frogs, and that is chytrid fungus. And this fungus infects frog skin, and it prevents the uptake of salts. And they really need those salts to regulate their circulatory system, and it can lead to death in these frogs. So unfortunately, chytrid fungus has spread to many different continents. It is a huge threat for amphibians around the world. One really cool thing that we do here at Zoo New England is we support the Panamanian Amphibian Rescue and Conservation Project, and we call that PARC. And we have sent staff from Zoo New England down to Panama. They work in conjunction with local conservationists, but also with professionals from other zoos, and they provide veterinary oversight, developing protocols for quarantining infected frogs, biosecurity, and treatment of these frogs. So there is a lot being done to help save them, and that's why zoos are really important. If we did not have these places where we can maintain their populations in human care, they could be actually extinct and gone forever. So that's a little bit about the Panamanian golden frog, but we're going to check in on our other species too, because we are having a fruit fly fest over here, a feeding frenzy of fruit flies. So you can see our green and black poison dart frog kind of jumping onto his little friend right there. So they're hunting. And one thing that's really cool about the green and black poison dart frogs, and we might get to see it on camera, they tap their back toes when they're hunting, which is one of my favorite things about them. I don't think it's exactly known why they tap their toes. It could be a way for the vibrations on the soil surface to bring insects out. It could be excitement. Scientists don't really know, but it's one of my favorite things about them. These green and black poison dart frogs are native to Central and South America, and they're a species of least concern. So their population is not in any imminent threat of becoming endangered or extinct. But as we learned, frogs have a lot of threats all across the globe, and the amphibian crisis is, pretty serious. There's the possibility that we could lose 1/3 to half of all amphibians in our lifetime. So even though they are considered a species of least concern, there are a lot of things we can do to help protect them, including cutting down our pesticide usage, and making sure that we have responsible pet ownership as well. So these frogs are a species of least concern in their natural range, but they are also an invasive species in other parts of the world. They have been introduced in Hawaii, likely as just either escaped pets or released pets that people did not want anymore, and they are considered an invasive species there. And there are over 100 different types of poison dart frogs. So this is a really cool way for you to get to see two, but there are many, many different species. And then we can see our friend, the dying poison dart frog. They are native to around northeastern Brazil. So they have a little bit smaller range than the green and black poison dart frog. And they get their name because of a really cool local story, a folk tale story, and that has to do with their color changing abilities. And it is just a story. There's no scientific founding that this is something that actually happens. But there's a story that if you took a macaw and rubbed a dying poison dart frog on the macaw's feathers, they would regrow a different color. So kind of like tie-dye. That's how they get their name, dying poison dart frog. But I just love that story. I think it's really cool. And I love hearing stories of how local wildlife are tied into different cultural beliefs. Yeah, so do we have any questions about frogs?
If somebody were to come to the Stone Zoo, would they be able to see these frogs on exhibit?
That's a good question. So these frogs are in our Animal Discovery Center, which unfortunately at this time is closed to the public because of the size of the space. It's just a really small space with COVID, but seeing them on our Zoo to You videos right now is a really great opportunity for you to get to see them up close, because normally you do not get to get as close to these frogs as we are now. So this is a really cool opportunity for all of you at home to get to see them up close. All right, I think we are just about out of time. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. And we're gonna close our door so our frogs are nice and safe. And a big thank you to MIFA and the YouFund College Investing Plan for sponsoring us today. Thanks for watching. Bye.